Yeah, literally just if you can see us and hear us right now, we don't know that you can because the way the way YouTube's operating, who knows? Okay, it looks like we're on YouTube. Awesome. Okay. Now I got to mute myself over there because I can hear myself. Okay, recording pause. Here we go. Awesome. Awesome. We have a great show today because if you are anything like I've been in the past, and that's like lacking confidence to put yourself out there, to do things that are going to help you to get the results that you want, you're going to want to tune in today's session because we're going to be talking to Lisa Philyaw. Did I say your name right?
You got it.
Oh my gosh. I got to do this. Philyaw.
Yeah, that's perfect.
I'm feeling ya. I'm feeling ya. She's like, what the heck kind of thing did I do? What am I getting into today? Like,
This is going to be a good conversation.
Just getting warmed up, Well, it's funny because we met each other through, mutual friends, and like we don't know each other. So this is kind of fun for me. I love interviewing people. I just love doing interviews. I've done, over 500 of them, and I love it. I love the synergy and connecting with people. And I never know where the conversation's going to go. I never know what kind of mood I'm going to be in that day, So let's just go for it. And, talking about confidence, I mean, really to step up and just say, hey, I don't know what the heck I'm doing. Let's go for it. Right. I'm curious for you. Have you, like, what kind of situation have you been in that has been something that's something that you didn't have confidence to do, but you have had to muster up that confidence? And how did you do it? And then what result did you get? That's like 10 questions in one. You got it?
It's a great question. There's some great layers to it. So I think my whole career really felt that way. And when I was in corporate America, I was in learning and development, and I was a trainer. I had never trained before. I mean, there's always the first time that you lead your presentation or that you're talking in front of people. And to muster the courage, I remember my boss said something to me. And he said, Lisa, I want you to imagine on the inside of your eyelids are the tattooed are the words, it's not about me. And just use that as your guide when you're with these people. And whenever I do that, I mean, it kind of sidesteps the need to even feel confident because it's no longer about me. It doesn't matter if I feel confident or not. It's about the people that you're helping. It's about the people that you're serving. It's about how they can benefit from what you're there to offer and how you can connect together. And so when I remember that, it takes me out of my head into my heart. And I end up feeling a lot more confident, ironically, as the result, because I'm not on me. The spotlight's not on me. I'm not putting it on me.
You know what I like about that? Because, a lot of times we'll hear things like, oh, imagine them all naked. I'm like, no, I do not want to imagine the audience naked. That's not where my mind wants to go. And I think I would be more embarrassed from that, but I like that idea. So what was it? Have tattooed? Imagine what's tattooed. It's not about you.
It's not about me.
It's not about me. It's not about me. I love that. Les Brown, he's an international motivational speaker. And, we were having a conversation one day and he said, he said, don't let what you want to say get in the way of what the audience needs to hear. And for me, that was my it's not about me moment, because I was like, whoa, I'm so worried about myself, about what they're going to think about me, that I'm not focusing on what's important, which is them. Right.
Yeah. Oh, that hits it right on the head. And I think what happens is we all try to overcompensate. So we'll script or we'll over prepare and we'll just do all of this work to set ourselves up. And what happens is maybe we sound good. Maybe we get the content just right, but we're not really there. We're so in our own heads that we aren't connecting with anyone we're speaking with. And then we're not truly able to have a transformation with them because they're not a part of the equation anymore. It's just you and your memorized script. And you can't access like the energy of the other person.
That's good. Because before we got started here, I said, this is not scripted, because I don't want to go into a conversation with a script, especially like not knowing you at all. I have no idea where the conversation's going to go. I don't know. I don't have any preconceived ideas about where we're going to take this. And, I like it that way more because it's more conversational. And I'm just curious, like, how the heck did you get into this type of work? Were you always a confident child and you're like, I'm just going to show everybody how I've been my whole life? Or did you have a tough childhood and you came out of it and you're like, oh my gosh, life is so much better with confidence? So how did you get into what you do?
Yeah, I definitely did not feel confident. The way that it really started, though, was I would get anxiety that would be so bad before any big work event that I'd be up the entire night. And it wasn't like oh, I can't sleep. It was like raging panic, waking my husband, worrying about how I was going to lose my job or how driving to the event, I was going to get in an accident because I hadn't slept and wouldn't be able to concentrate. So I'd be so anxious. And then I'd go and get really mad at myself and I'd start judging myself and beating up on myself. And this dynamic was at play. And it just got worse and worse and worse to the point where I was dreading any type of work event because I didn't know if I could handle it. And I was thinking I was going to need to quit my job, a job that other than that, I would have loved, but was way too much to hold on to. So no, I think that paints the picture that I was not always feeling so great.
Yes. Yeah. How did you get into this then? Like what moved you into that space? Because to go from that, I've gone through similar emotions for different things, but I've gone through that too, having that anxiety, that stress, like your throat is all locked up or your knees are shaking and, you just don't even want to, you'd rather be somewhere else, for lack of a better thing. But yeah, you just rather would, I mean, I don't want to say you'd rather die, but you'd rather be somewhere else, not experiencing that. So what moved you from that to what you're doing today?
I discovered life coaching really is what it was. And I remember I was on a group coaching call and I was sitting outside and I was explaining this to everyone on the call because I wanted help from the coach. And I felt embarrassed and ashamed and just so much judgment wrapped up in it. But I'm sharing my story and the coach looks at me and she goes, Lisa, what if not sleeping was not a problem? And this question blew my mind because I mean, for other people that might not seem like a big deal, but I had made it into such a massive issue that was ruling my life that it had never occurred to me that it could have been fine to just not sleep. And so that was kind of the first step, but I couldn't force that belief. You can't force a belief on. That just makes you feel worse about yourself, which I think is what happens with people in confidence. They try to positive affirm, but not from a place of any type of grounding. So it's so far to their reach. They don't understand why it doesn't work. And they lose their trust with themselves because they're kind of lying to themselves about what they think.
Oh, that's a great point right there, because affirmations, I like to talk about these positive affirmations. And a lot of time they say, just say them over and over and over again and you'll believe them, which is not true. I mean, I've done that and it didn't work. I had to believe it before I could believe it. I had to get to this point where I actually believed that I was kind. I had to believe that I was nice. I had to believe that I was truthful, like all these different affirmations. I have so many, like thousands of them, right? And I just could not grasp that. And I had to believe them one at a time. And I'm curious, like, what's your thought on that? Because I myself, I'm one of those who needs to analyze. I need to know why I'm doing something in order, like that's a piece of my puzzle in my head. I have to know why in order to fix it. And there's a lot of people who don't subscribe to that. They're like, you don't really need to know the root cause of anything. So I'm curious, like, what's your thought on that? And, how do you implement that, like, in the work that you do?
I love that question because I think it can go both ways. I think if knowing why gives you a sense of relief, then there's no reason not to explore it. Where I think it can go wrong is we get so focused on there having to be a reason or something wrong that we can't move past it. So we think, is it this? Is it that? Or we're asking why while we're in the middle of the emotion. And if we ask why while we're feeling, we'll just use anxious. Like for me, not being able to sleep, for me to try to figure out why. I mean, I kind of knew why, but I didn't know the deeper cause behind it. And it would just make it too intellectual. Sometimes you have to start with the emotion, with allowing yourself to just say, okay, I'm feeling anxious. My heart's beating. My cheeks are red. I feel like shallow breath. That's where I'm at. And it's when your brain tries to take you, well, why is this happening? What's going on? Brain, I hear you. We're going to get there later. Right now, I just want to process this thing that's going through me, this vibration, this chemical reaction going through me. So I think it's maybe not about whether to ask why or why not, or whether we need to know it, but more about when we ask the question too.
Oh, that's good. And good point, because when we're in the situation, we need to feel it, right? I mean, like there's so many times where somebody's starting to cry and they're like, "Oh, okay, I gotta stop, right? And then other people are like, no, let it go, let it flow, right? And so I'm curious, like, about that. Is that my understanding? And I'm not a psychologist. I don't have any like life coaching or anything like that. Everything I say is just based on my own life observation. So that's my disclaimer. And so for me, it's like, to let the tears out. I know that I went through a tremendous amount of healing through those tears. And what is your thought about people trying to stop other people from emoting or from crying?
I think people do that out of their own fear of their own emotions. If somebody thinks it's not okay to feel, that's just them showing you their own thoughts about feelings. And I'm in 100% agreement with you about the healing process that crying and just allowing yourself to feel can have. But you have to be willing to be in a state where you feel a little out of control. I mean, you literally are like, there's stuff coming out of your eyes. I mean, we're not consciously like, let me have a tear fall. It's just happening. So there's so much of surrendering to the process that you have to do. And some people aren't comfortable with that, or aren't ready for that, or are so in the masculine energy of we have to, structure this and figure it out and plan it, that they lose sight of the flow side of it.
Stuff coming out of your eyes. That was the technical term, by the way. Stuff coming out of your eyes. Well, my husband and I were just watching a program. We we'll watch for like an hour or sometimes 2 hours a night. We'll just get together and watch a program together. And one of those Netflix series, we're watching right now is called Supergirl. And, it's the superhero thing. And oh my gosh, I was like, oh, I'm getting ready to interview this woman in an hour. Her name's Lisa. And so we turn on the program, we're watching it. And I'm like, and then suddenly, oh my gosh, this scene was, my eyes were just, I was tearing up so crazy. And it's just thinking about how I'm going to get on this call with this lady. She's going to see all my red eyes, and I said, what, that's okay, because it's part of something. It's just a program, but there was so much emotion in it. And that's one thing I think that is so beautiful about us as human beings, because no animal on this planet emotes like we do. And we have this power as humans to do this, and how cool that is. So all it just meant was that I was in tune with what was going on emotionally speaking. I mean, that's what my thought is. What do you think about that? You're like, oh, this lady's crazier than I thought. She's a loon.
No, I'm really liking what you're saying and what you're sharing, and just the level of awareness that you're having with the emotion. I mean, it's there, it's raw. You didn't try to push it away. You acknowledged the thoughts that were happening and you let them be there, and then let yourself cry and feel anyways. What a gift for yourself and for the world and everyone listening to this interview here, to get to see you, live in your truth and being an example just in that. And the more we can do that, the more we can have the power, like you shared, the power of the emotion and the lessons beneath it that it always has. But when we push it away, we never get to access.
Yeah. That just reminded me when my daughter was young, say like 10 years old or so, that we would be watching a program and she would usually sit in a seat like further ahead of me. And I was always in the back. Like I would sit on the couch and she would sit on a chair, and she would just look back at me like, are you crying, Mom? I'm like, yes, I would just say, yes, I'm crying because she knew that I was going to be crying in some of those parts. She didn't cry, but I did, I'm a big crier, but it's good though, because I love, just like you said, the emotions and stuff. But you have, your company is called Belief Seed. So I got to know, what the heck is that? And how did you come up with the name Belief Seed? I mean, it's a great name. And I'm curious, like, what's the genesis of that?
Yeah. So I I believe every idea, I mean, it starts as that seed, that little knowing inside where, I mean, the first one for me, or that I recall in this way, is I knew that I could be confident. I knew it was in there and I just didn't know how to grow it. But that's the seed, the little knowing, the little voice that's saying, hey, there's a way, that there could be a way through this. And when you nurture it and you water it by putting the resources in front of you and holding the space for yourself and letting yourself heal, you get to grow. And that's the whole idea behind it. We don't have to be the tree right now. We can be the seed and respect the seed, because the tree is within the seed. It's just not realized yet.
The tree is within the seed. I've never heard that term before. I love that because it really gives that visual. It's true, because the seed has to, like you say, have to nurture it. It has to germinate, nurture it. It grows. And have you heard the story of the, I forgot the name of the tree. So forget my story. Oh, the Chinese bamboo tree. Have you heard that story?
No.
Oh, I'll share it briefly. So the a Chinese bamboo tree, you, I'll tell it in a different way than I was going to, but you don't know the way I was going to. So I'm telling it
So
the
I
only
won't know
way,
it. Yeah.
exactly. But there's this farmer and he's having a hard time with his crops. Every year, some years he has good crops and some years bad crops. And so he decided he wanted to plant something that was going to have yield a harvest every year. And that's the bamboo tree, the Chinese bamboo tree. So he bought some seeds and he planted these bamboo tree seeds, and he went by and he watered them every day. And then a year later, nothing came out of the harvest. So he went and he just continued to water them and to take care of those trees that he knew that someday they were going to blossom. And so he did this continually for 5 years. Nothing came out of the ground for 5 years. Well, one day after 5 years, first of all, his neighbors were like, you are a Looney Tune. What are you doing watering dirt? Why do you keep on watering the dirt? And so he goes, no, it's going to happen. It's going to happen. So 5 years later, the first one started to sprout through the ground. Just a little teeny piece, started to sprout through the ground. Within 5 weeks, that bamboo tree was 80 feet tall. So it wasn't just that one, it was all the other bamboo trees that he had planted 5 years earlier. So the question is, did it take 5 years or did it take 5 weeks for that bamboo tree to get 80 feet tall? Well, it was all from the beginning, right? It's just like you're talking about, the germination, the seed and all that stuff. All that stuff had to be cultivated. It just happened to take 5 years before we would see anything. And sometimes it does take a long time. Sometimes it takes a short amount of time, but it is a journey and we do have to work on ourselves. And I love that you're a life coach, because I'll share this story. When I was 51, I was driving to work one day. I had 49 jobs and I had worked in the corporate world for 36 years. So I'm driving to work for my 49th job. And I just started asking myself that question: why am I here? What is my purpose? What is the purpose of this whole planet? It doesn't even make any sense to me. I have no value. There's no reason for me to be here. Well, I was asking myself those questions. I didn't have the answer, but those are the questions I was asking. So I got to work that day. I went onto Facebook and there was a group that I belonged to. And there was this woman and she posted this post and it's almost verbatim. I'm a life coach. I took some time off. I'm getting back into it and I'm looking for 5 women who want to change their life. That was me that morning. I was saying, I gotta figure something out. And so I raised my hand and I started working with her. 5 months later, my entire self, me, I was totally transformed in 5 months. So it's 51 years plus those 5 months of guidance. It was the 5 months of guidance. I needed that. I wasn't able to answer those questions on my own. I wasn't able to guide myself. I had gone through 51 years of path that was taking me not to where I wanted to go. It was not leading me to my purpose. Of course, it helped me to fulfill my purpose later, I found. But that life coach, this is such important work. And I'd love to hear from you. Like, what's one of your favorite stories that you have of one of your clients? I would love to, because I'm like an A student, right? I'm like, I got an A+ in my life coach lessons. I'm not a life coach, but I'm a great student. And I learned as much as I possibly could in that 5 months. And I carried it forward, for the next 7 years. So I'd love to hear, like, what's one of your like star students, or one of your favorite stories from one of your clients?
Yeah, one of my favorites was, she came to me and she knew she wanted to write 2 books and she didn't know how. And so on our first session, we're talking and she's presenting me all of the questions that she had, like, should she do it? Which should she start with? And she spent a lot of time debating which one to write first. All these questions about the format and the when and the how. And our brain does this. It'll present us with questions, sometimes to help us. And sometimes they're kind of like a way to keep us safe and small. And you can tell by how the questions feel. Do they feel restrictive? Do you feel like you're getting super tight and like you have to get it all right? And so through coaching and working together, she was able to see the limits behind the questions. It's not about which to do first. It was about putting herself out there, sharing it with the world, and the ability to be comfortable with that and breaking all the rules. She's a therapist, and also breaking the rules of what was allowed and not allowed in her own idea of what it meant to do her job and how she'd been trained. So it's how to access yourself, how to hear your own guidance and not all the shoulds that are all around you. And so we put the questions aside and we coached on that. And then she was able to get the momentum. She wrote the first book. It's out now on Amazon. The next one's coming out later this month. And then she already has some others going. We're not working together anymore, but it continues on even past the engagement. And I love that, how you can see just the little change, the little tweaks.
And what I love about that is she came to you with what she thought she needed, right? Because we only have so much information. I only know what I know up until this moment. And so when I look outside of myself for help, those people have all their experience and knowledge also. And oftentimes they can see that we actually need help in a different area because we're blocked. I have all of my childhood trauma that I, carry around with me in that little satchel, and we all have that. And so, I'm carrying it around, and there's sometimes I just can't see some of the things. So I love how she came to you with a problem, but that wasn't really the problem. So it was through the work with you that you were able to help her shift something else that helped her see that she needed to shift something else in order to get the result she wanted, which was the books. Right now she's getting ready to go on her 3rd book, right? So you helped her to unlock whatever that was preventing her from making that forward movement. I love that. Congratulations. And for her too, of course.
Yeah, I mean, it's great now because there's this book out in the world that so many more people get to benefit from. And I mean, I'm sure you can relate to that because I've seen all of the incredible books that you're putting out to the world because you have the courage, or I don't know what the feeling is for you, but you're doing that part and you're putting it out there regardless of, or maybe because of how you feel. I don't know, but it makes an impact.
It really does. And my first book was a collaboration book that I was part of. And then my next book was called The Year of Fears. I faced a fear every single day for a year in 2015. And then my mentor was like, you need to write a book about it. I'm like, why? He said, because there's people out there that need to hear this story. Who faces a fear every day for a year? First of all, that's quite crazy in itself, right? He's like, people need to hear your story. And I was attending an event, and this woman came running from the other side of the room, yelling my name, Linda Sunshine, Linda Sunshine. And I looked over like, who's that woman? She's going to accost me, is what I thought. I didn't know who she was. And she's like, oh my God, I bought your book. I read the first 14 pages and I've already broken through 5 fears. And exactly what you just said is I realized that she's why I wrote the book. Got my eyelids closed and I seen it is not about me. It was about her her and those who followed her, because there's been more people since then. But that was the first one that helped me realize that, oh, that's why I wrote it, you know? And so all the books after that have all been about, it's about others, about inspiring and motivating people to take action. That's what my podcast is all about. That's what everything I do is about. So I love that you were able to help that woman to move into that space, because now she has that confidence to continue her work, to put it out there, to change people's lives, you know, to move them into that place of confidence themselves. There's so many great things that come of that. So congratulations. Did you want to comment on that before we go to your free giveaway?
Yeah, I would love to. First off, I got actual tingles like in my head and in my fingers when you were sharing that. Just, oh, that person who's been helped from that. That's amazing. And I think one other thing I wanted to say too was, I think what happens, and I find this especially with women, is we start to access our confidence. And then we start to feel like we shouldn't, because we start to feel like we're putting ourselves on this pedestal. So what we do is we beat ourselves down. And what I'd like to offer is sometimes the pedestal can be the way to confidence. But once you're there, if you're there, you don't have to go there, but if you're there and you start beating yourself down, instead of beating yourself down, lift the others up. Like, it's okay to feel self-important. Just don't lose the importance of others in the process. And I think for me, at least, my struggle has always been around confidence versus being humble, but they both coexist when we don't make it into a hierarchy.
That is good. And what did you say? I wish I wrote it down. You said, don't, it's okay to be there, but you know, bring others up with you. Like, and it's not about levels, like we talk about higher level and stuff like that. Really, it's not about levels or hierarchy, right? Like you mentioned hierarchy, but it's really about just supporting and lifting others is all it is. And,
Yeah.
you know, I think that society makes us feel like it's boastful, and boastful is a bad thing. And, you know, here's the thing, especially you women out there, you listen up, you women, because I'm one of you. And, you know, for some reason, we allow ourselves to beat ourselves down when we're at that level, you know, just like Lisa was mentioning, you know, you're up leveling your own personal self, and you beat yourself down because society tells us that's boastful if we talk about ourselves. I love to do in my group, I love to do a brag day, and I call it a brag day. I want to hear you brag about yourself, because I'm going to applaud you and I'm going to be there as your cheerleader. So what happens is we insert ourselves into areas with people who are not as uplifting and positive and motivational. And so we end up, you know, tapping into their negativity, and that's what pulls us down. So if you surround yourself with those people who are positive and uplifting, then you'll find that when you quote unquote brag about yourself, we don't see it as a brag at all. We see it as a victory. Congratulations. I'm so excited for what you've done. And I think that's, you know, one of the differences, that who we surround ourselves with. So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, I mean, the whole world is just, it's an energy exchange. So the people around you do have an impact on you and you have an impact on them. It just depends on how you allow it. So I'm a big advocate for surrounding yourself with people that lift you up. And I also feel that even if that isn't the case, where you're around people who aren't as positive, especially when you're putting yourself out there, I mean, take an action, you're going to put yourself in front of people who are in a more negative space. And just remembering that it isn't that you've done anything wrong. If somebody sees it as bragging and you genuinely, you're not doing it to try to prove yourself, you're doing it because it's what you've done, you're just sharing your truth, then them seeing it that way is about their own idea of it and their own issues with their own confidence and esteem. It's not about your esteem. So as long as you feel grounded in yourself and you love your reasons for sharing, then there doesn't have to be anything to stop us.
You know, when I became a #1 best-selling author and international best-selling author, I was shouting from the rooftops. And I was so glad to be in circle with people who supported me and said, awesome, keep going, keep doing what you're doing. They didn't try to pull me down. So with that said, I want you to talk about your free gift that you have, is how to debunk 5 myths about self-confidence. Tell us what that's all about. And the link will be in the chat there or in the comments or wherever it goes. I don't know. It'll be down there. You'll be able to get it. Okay. So go ahead and tell us what is that all about?
Perfect. Yeah. So what it is it's an ebook and it's on the 5 myths that we can debunk, and it'll help us access our self-confidence. Because our self-confidence, I like to believe, and it's always there. It's like the current underneath all of the blocks we put on top of it. And a lot of these blocks are myths that society tells us, that, our people we were raised with tell us, our bosses might even tell us. And if we can start to see them, that they're myths and not truths, and let them go, then the confidence within just naturally wells up. So this book goes over what I find to be the 5 most common myths that I see when I'm working with my clients. And by reading the book, you'll see them. And when we see them, it's like seeing the problem. That's the actual problem, not what we thought the problem was. It can help you to loosen and start to let go of them as well.
Oh, I love that. I love that. So make sure you click the link, download that free ebook, Debunk 5 Myths, or How to Debunk 5 Myths About Self-Confidence. Okay, we're getting to the end of the show here, Lisa. So I have one question that I ask all of my guests, and that is, what is one action step our audience can take today, tomorrow, or next week that will up-level their personal and or professional life? One action step.
One action step that I think people can take, I was going to say a dare of the day, but we kind of already covered that, which is this idea of doing something you're scared of, which you're such a great representative and example for that. So if I were to say a different one, write a love letter to yourself. Like, do this for a month. I did this for a month, and at first it felt a little hokey, but I kind of leaned into it and played with it. But you'll see your own beauty and your own brilliance, and you'll get to love yourself at such a deeper level. So that's what I would offer.
I love that. So every day for 30 days, write yourself a love letter. And so would you give us an example of what one might sound like, just for those who need a little bit of guidance on that?
Yeah, because it is kind of an abstract thing. So what I would do is get a piece of paper. It doesn't need to be like a big one, just a half sheet would be fine. And then just say your name, like, Dear Lisa, I'm writing to you today because I want you to know your own brilliance. And I see it. And I know you've been struggling. And I know that you're nervous about the meeting that's coming up. But whatever happens, I'm here for you. And it, just let it flow out of you. And I think what happens is sometimes people are like, nothing's coming. What do I do? There's no love coming. If that's the case, just write, I love you. I love you. I love you. And if that doesn't feel good, then just write, I'm taking the time to write a letter to me today. I'm taking the time to write a letter to me today. I'm taking the time to write a letter to me today. Just that in itself is an act of love. Even if you don't have a word, that's okay. You're taking the time.
Ooh, okay. I like this exercise. Okay. You heard it right here. 30 days in a row. If you're going to take the commitment to, take that challenge, go ahead and drop it down in the comments below so we can know that you're getting ready to take that challenge, and then come back and report back 30 days later. Let us know how it turned out. So that is so beautiful. I myself didn't love myself for many, many decades until I worked with my life coach, who helped me to learn how to love myself. I grew up in an abuse, and love was not the thing that I felt in that household. So I didn't know how to love, right? So I had to learn that. And so this one exercise here is one way to help you get closer to that. And of course, if you're looking for a life coach, please reach out to Lisa. I'll have all her contact information down there for you. Go ahead and reach out to her and see how she can help you. She's helped thousands of clients, to get what they want in their life, to move into that state of confidence, because sometimes it's just confidence. That's all that we're missing. That's the one piece of the puzzle that we're moving to move forward in our lives. So thank you so much for being here, Lisa. I truly appreciate you. And everybody, go out there and write yourself a love letter. This is exciting. I'm going to do mine right now. Well, when I turn this off, of course.
Thank you so much.
Everybody have a great day, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye now.